Good morning. I'll call the meeting to order. This is the special council meeting of Tuesday, October 31st, 2023, and we will be hearing this morning from the rest of our departments on the overview of their budget for 2024. Everyone is in chambers on council. Councillor Yo is online, and without further ado, we'll look for adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor McDonald. All in favor? And that pass. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on anything on today's agenda? Seeing none, should any arise during the course of the meeting, please advise the chair and we'll deal with them accordingly. We'll move now to item 4, and item 4.1 is Development Services. Richard Hawley, Director of Development Services.
Good morning, everyone, members of council, staff, and the public. Happy to present our budget overview for 2024. Brought with us some of the staff here. So to my right, I've got Mary Ann Hunt. She's the supervisor of the development planning program. Leah Barry, she's the manager of planning. And to my left, we've got Wendy Ellis, keeps it all together as the executive assistant. Suzanne Murchison is our chief building official. Rebecca Mustard is our economic development manager, and Ann Elmhurst is our supervisor of the Part 2 program. So just wanted to put the names to the faces. So development services is broken into, or consists of 3 divisions. There is the planning division, which is managed by Leah Barry. There's the building and septic division, which is managed by Suzanne Murchison, and the economic development division, which is managed by Rebecca Mustard. So in terms of an overall overview, the development services department is really responsible for the development program in the city. We process applications, we develop policy, we do all of the different things in the various divisions that help to assist development within the city. We are also responsible for a number of city committees and boards. So Environmental Advisory Committee is one, Committee of Adjustment, the Municipal Heritage Committee, and the Agricultural Development Advisory Committee is the final one. So overall, the department consists of 51 full-time staff within the 3 divisions. I'll call on Leah Barry to give you a quick overview of the planning division.
All right. Richard, thank you for that. Good morning. Very happy to be part of this part of the budget process. I understand Richard is going to be stepping back in a few minutes to summarize our highlights and accomplishments, of which there are many, our priorities, our budget pressures. But first, I will share some overviews of our planning operations with you. So there it is. All the amazing stuff that we do. You can see the areas of responsibility on the slide. What I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes talking to you about the people who do all this good work. We have gone through a lot of changes in the past few years, both in programming and in staffing. We are going through a rebuilding phase, a very youthful, energetic team at the moment. We have our development wing, which is led by Mary Ann Hunt, our development supervisor. She joined us in March. We have our policy shop, and of course the Nerve Center that supports all of our work. That's our mapping and GIS tech, Carrie Shirk, and our administration team. Wendy Ellis, the EA to our director, supervises 3 of our administrative assistants, Charlotte Crockford, Nancy Ord and Erica Hallett. The admin team supports our 3 focus areas, the Committee of Adjustment, Planning Advisory Committee, and the Policy Portfolio. The admin team triages general inquiries by phone, by email, and in person, and assigns these inquiries to the appropriate staff. Most often, inquiries are directed to the planner on duty for that day, who provide advice, information. They process zoning compliance requests for real estate transactions and to support the work of our colleagues in municipal law enforcement. The planners that provide this daily service are Ahmed Shahid, Ryan Bake, and Nicholas Smith. Our newest planner, Cheyenne Okwat, joined us in August. He's already assisting with these daily inquiries. Nicholas and Ahmed have moved into new roles this year, and they're joining Mark LaHaye and Catherine Evans, getting exposure to the Committee of Adjustment and the Planning Advisory Committee portfolios. Max Fallhammer joined the team in June as our policy planner. He's monitoring and commenting on provincial legislative changes, never a dull moment when it comes to those. We are looking to double the size of our policy shop from 1 staff to 2 by filling the policy supervisor vacancy. On that note, while we continue our recruitment efforts to fill 5 vacancies, we are working with 2 external land use consultants to process development applications under the Planning Act. Professional services firm WSP, and Bruce Stickney, a registered professional planner who focuses exclusively on the consents portfolio. So while we don't have the bandwidth internally to process all the planning applications just yet, and until our staff complete the training programs to bring some of this work back in-house, sharing the load with the consultants does give us the space that we need to look at our admin processes and streamline our proposal review function. And that basically is directing people to the right application stream earlier on in the development process and providing checklists for standard submission requirements. We have seen the biggest gains with more comprehensive upfront reviews, eliminating pre-screenings ahead of minor variances, and reassessing the pre-consultation portfolio to determine which proposals benefit from that level of preliminary review versus which proposals are great candidates to instead advance directly to Planning Act application submissions through the consulting team. Reassessing the telecom and site plan control processes we think will benefit from the same type of streamlining. You may also recognize WSP from the project work they're involved with, the Comprehensive Rural Zoning Bylaw Comprehensive Project, the Active Transportation Master Plan. We have a number of consultants that we work with regularly. SEMA are leading the ATMP. Watsons and Dillons are working with us on our GMS, and Dillon is also representing the city on a number of appeals at the Ontario Land Tribunal. Our team manages various jump-in project websites, provides a liaison service for various corporate committees that Richard mentioned at the outset. We're on a number of task forces, technical review teams, and provide support to our colleagues across the corporation. Housing matters, heritage, the environment, community improvement, short-term rentals. So just flipping it, and this is the last of the 2 slides I'll be talking to, basically outlines the framework that governs all of our work, the information and advice we provide to the public, the recommendations that we provide to you and to various of your committees, the policies we develop, all to support sustainable, healthy community growth. That's all based on the information on this slide. We do strive to balance competing priorities, and we do that and do it well in an ever-evolving policy planning regime. It all does start at the top with the Planning Act. The province has delegated municipalities land use duties, responsibilities to us under the Act. Establishes provincial interests, and those are the ground rules for planning in Ontario. The provincial interests are translated into the PPS, the Provincial Policy Statement. We are subject to a number of different provincial plans that we see sort of in the center of the slide there. And unlike the PPS, they aren't province-wide. They are specific to our geography here, the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, the Greenbelt Plan, and the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So the Act mandates that provincial direction be incorporated into municipal official plans, and that those OPs be consistent with and don't conflict with the provincial plans up on the screen. We are required to undertake comprehensive reviews of our official plan every 10 years now. It's a multi-year program. It involves a lot of corporate departmental coordination and extensive public consultation as well. A major component of the review work is the conformity exercises to ensure that our local plans are in alignment with the provincial plans that do keep changing. PPS and the growth plan, we saw changes in 2014 and 17, about 3 changes in 2019, again in 2020, and we are anticipating even more change with the draft new PPS that was released in April. So while our official plan sets out direction through policies, schedules, that's all the mapping attached to the plans, they contain the policies on how we are to manage our growth in the future. Zoning bylaws, on the other hand, are applicable law. We have a lot of them. We currently are working with 17 of them and have been for the past couple of decades. So notwithstanding all of these instruments that determine and help us evaluate land use proposals that we come to you with to give you recommendations on, the zoning bylaws are the ones that are applicable law when it comes to my colleagues in the department. So before Richard comes back and highlights some of our other accomplishments, like resolving our long-standing appeals to our official plans and secondary plans, Suzanne, I think you are next up. Tell us a bit more about maybe zoning bylaws, or hopefully not.
Good morning. Mine's going to seem a little short and sweet compared to Leah, sorry. So the Building and Septic Division is comprised of 21 staff members in the team. We are now at full complement, which is a huge hooray for our department. We're located in 3 locations throughout the city currently. However, the team from Kobe is temporarily relocated to Lindsay while the capital project is underway. We are in the process, which Richard will highlight in a minute, of trying to set up a north and a south hub to make our services more accessible to our customer. The team is responsible for the intake of Building Code Act applications, so construction and demolition permits, construction of private on-site sewage systems of less than 10,000 litres a day. As well, we process applications relating to a registration of ARUs, to pool and sign bylaw permits, building and septic compliance letters for property sales and refinancing, search of records requests from our property owners looking for copies of old permits and information. Our septic team is responsible for mandatory maintenance inspections, so that's related to the Building Code Act and on-site sewage systems relating to source water protection legislation. So we do a 5-year cycle. We're in middle of the second cycle of that process, looking at any property that falls within the areas that have been deemed to be required to be looked at through the legislation. And just wanted to highlight that the province will be introducing a new building code in 2024. They are being required to harmonize with the national code more closely. So we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 changes to our code, some less stringent than what we have currently. So it's a big, it'll be a big learning curve for staff, the customers, the contractors. It's going to be a busy year next year, just I think handling that legislation. So that's something that, yeah, we're sort of looking forward to. Okay. Which one? Oh, I don't know what button. There we go.
Well, good morning. So economic development is up next. And economic development is the process of improving the vibrancy of communities and the livelihood of the businesses and the people that live there. So your economic development team is delivering programs, projects, initiatives that help businesses and culture thrive in Kawartha Lakes. And we have 4 program streams that I'm going to highlight with you today that together deliver a coordinated and comprehensive economic development program. They are in alphabetical, not in alphabetical order on the screen, so we'll go through them. Here we go. Business development, retention, expansion, and attraction. This is where your economic development team works directly with individual businesses on case-by-case basis. So we work with businesses as they are promoting, to promote and support their local investment, the expansion or retention of a business, or new business investment coming into the area. And you'll also be familiar with the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Centre, which specialises in startups. Some of the initiatives and programs that you'll recognise under this work area would be the Development Concierge Process, Starter Company, Summer Company, and Business Advisory. The next area to highlight with you, the program area, is economic strategy. So this is where we work with the economy, community, municipality as a whole to develop certain sectors or the vibrancy and a thriving local economy. So in this area, we've got strategies, projects, partnerships, programs that are all supporting this resiliency. And you'll see this in the work that's going on with downtown revitalization, with sector-based strategies, so the tourism destination marketing plan, our film office, local food program, Kawartha Choice Farm Fresh, the Kawartha Lakes Ecosystem Network, and the Innovation Cluster Partnership, just to name a few. Next is our tourism program, and Kawartha Lakes is the destination marketing organisation for this area. This gives us the responsibility to both develop tourism product and market that product to visitor attraction. Finally, and our last area up here is culture and heritage, and this is an area that you as a council have invested significantly in recently and over the last probably 5 to 8 years. And this area, you'll notice programs that come out around heritage preservation, public art, and curatorial services. And that gives you an overview of our economic development program that is delivered by 11 full-time staff, currently 1 contract in our team of summer students that are incredibly talented and work very hard every day for you. Thank you.
Thank you for those overviews, everyone. So moving on to our highlights and accomplishments. So one of the major accomplishments this year was a full office move coordinated between all 3 departments. So the building division moved downstairs and is now fully downstairs and open to the public. And economic development came upstairs and moved into what was the former planning office, and the planning group moved across into the former building space. Wanted to recognize Craig's group in the assistance in that, so couldn't have done it without him. As Leah mentioned, we've also got planning services contracts for external planning application review. Given that we're down a few staff, we've needed to go this route to assist with our development application review processes, and we have 2 contracts that we currently have, and it is going quite well. We've resolved the secondary plan appeals for Lindsay and Fenelon Falls, so that was quite a huge effort. A lot went into that. Fenelon Falls, the official plan has now been repealed by the province, so the secondary plan is now in place. We're waiting for the province to repeal the Town of Lindsay official plan. Once that's done, then the Lindsay secondary plan will be in place, and we'll have a brand new set of policies in place. So we're really looking forward to that. Implemented call queue phone system, and we've done that in tandem with the customer service group. Means that all the phone calls that come in remain in a queue. They don't get dropped, and we get to them in priority sequence. So that's been really good, and we've done that for the planning and building and septic divisions. As Suzanne mentioned, her division is now up to full staff, which is a huge accomplishment. And that sort of helps us with the next item, building permits now being issued within the specific timelines. Obviously, there's specific timelines. I believe it's 10 days once a building permit is sort of finalized. We have 10 days to approve it once it's complete, and we are now able to hit that because we have the staff that are working on those. Enhanced reporting mechanism for building without a permit. So there are now links on our website that people can go to report anyone that's building without a permit, either a house or a shed or a septic system. The forms are fillable and they are now accessible to everyone that goes online. As Rebecca mentioned, the Kawartha Lakes Tourism developed and launched a number of new tourism products. So there are 10 paddling routes through our lakes and rivers, and there are also a number of scenic drives that have been launched. And I understand they've been very well received by the public. We also did the business count review project of over 750 employment properties in Kawartha Lakes. As Rebecca mentioned, it's we had a group of summer students this summer, and they basically go to the businesses and sit down and talk to them about the number of employees they have, the type of businesses they're operating, and get some operational data from them. It's also reciprocal. We in some cases, these businesses have never contacted the city, so we use this almost as a concierge opportunity to introduce the city to them, all of the products and services that we have, and put a name to the face, and if they have any issues, we let them know who to speak to at the city. This information also helps us with different forecasting models that we may rely on. So the information is really important. And finally, there's a number of programs that we're operating through economic development, so $1 Million Makeover, a program to sort of help businesses with building and facade improvements. Digital Main Street is a really important program, especially through COVID, because what it did is it got people onto the website. Many businesses didn't have an online presence, so that helped get them online. Kawartha Farm Fresh is an initiative between the city and Peterborough to market local food producers, so that has been very successful as well. And the Development Concierge Program is also a business-related program where we reach out to anyone coming into the community, and we help them sort of go through, navigate all the different city departments, and help them maybe get grants, so on and so forth. I think probably one of the businesses that has benefited a lot has been Brooklyn Concrete. We brought them here through this program. So I think that's one of the major successes that we've had with that program. 2024, 2024 priorities. So resolve the remaining secondary plans so that we can finally have everything in force. So Bob Cajun and Omimi are the last remaining ones. So we do have hearing dates set for this year. We are working with our legal team as well as Dillon Consulting to start working through those secondary plan issues with the appellants. So we're hoping to resolve that this year. Implementing the city's housing pledge targets to 2031. We have another 8 years to go, and we have to get 6,500 units built. So this year we have to get 477 units built. Next year, 542, and in 2025, 650. So obviously we'll have to ramp that up in the following years to hit that target. But I think we are well positioned to reach that target. Finalizing the rural zoning bylaw, active transportation master plan, and the growth management strategy. All three of those projects are major projects for the city. Rural zoning bylaw will consolidate everything and provide some consistency. Active transportation master plan will provide us with goals and objectives for active transportation. We'll also work that into our official plan. Finally, the growth management strategy is one of the foundational pieces for growth, and that leads us into the next official plan, and that strategy is twinned with the servicing and transportation master plans being led in engineering. Implement electronic application processes in building and planning. We feel that this is really necessary to help us streamline processes and make it easier for our customers to submit applications. Establish a north and a south hub for building and septic division program delivery. We're looking at 2 hubs specifically because we can staff both hubs with all the services, so we can have building, septic, and enforcement in both areas, so it's important to us. Certification training for all new building and septic division staff to get them their BCIN qualifications. The economic development strategy refresh is happening next year. It's going to be looking at where we've come, where we need to go to accommodate all of the new growth, as well as looking to perhaps evaluate staffing within that context. Development of the Cultural Center Phase 2 feasibility study. There's a task force that's responsible for that program delivery, and we will be looking at what the center looks like and where it ought to go. 2024 International Plowing Match is going to be a big program for ECDEV. It happens in the fall, and we're setting up bi-weekly meetings with that liaison group to make sure that that everything is in place for that program to be successful. And finally, staff recruitment, primarily in the planning division, just looking to get the staffing levels back up where they should be. Finally, budget pressures. So we're looking to review the planning application fees. A bit of work through our contract with WSP sort of gives us an idea of what is being charged for reviews, and we're going to take a look at that to see what we're charging. We're also going to be looking at sort of comparator municipalities to see what the application fees are, because they have gone up substantially in some of our surrounding municipalities, and this will help us with implementing cost recovery. Finally, technology, just working with IT to ensure that we have the appropriate technology to allow all new employees to work effectively. And this also sort of links back to some of the online application process work that we're also doing. So with that, I will wrap it up, and thank you, and open to questions.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive the deputation? Councillor Warren, seconder, Councillor Smeeden. Questions? Councillor Warren.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentations by everybody. Just a couple questions, and I just wondered where we are with the staff member for the HEP. I didn't see that mentioned, so just for everybody out there, that's the Healthy Environment Plan, and that's been on the books for a couple of years, so there is money in the budget moving forward for that position.
Through the mayor to Councillor Warren, yes, we are looking to recruit. We're sort of moving that through the final process to get that job listed and put into our organizational chart. We're working that through with the union, and hopefully we'll get that put in place soon, and then we can recruit. But you're absolutely right. That job has been budgeted for some time, and we do want to get moving on with that program.
Thank you. Just a couple more through you, Mr. Mayor. The ecosystem network, I assume that's the paddling routes.
Through the mayor to Councillor Warren. Yeah, sure.
Through you, Mayor Elmsley, to the councillor. The Kawartha Lakes Ecosystem Network is not the paddling routes, but it is a group of economic development related organisations that come together to coordinate programming. So around the table we have all the Chambers of Commerce, the BIA, Workforce Development Board, our local academic institutions, economic development and innovation cluster and CFDC.
So they come together to do what?
We established this group, just to take it back for a moment, we established this group sometime after completing the first economic development strategy in 2017, when we did consultations for that strategy and heard from the business community that they were very excited about the future of business in Kawartha Lakes. But the same excitement was not shared with the support organisations, the people that should be there helping facilitate our businesses do great things. So we created this group to bring them together so they could meet each other, share across the table the different programs that are being offered, and develop opportunities for collaborative programming. So Small Business Week is one of those things. The Trent Community Concierge program that we ran with funding from the province, that came out of this group, those sorts of activities.
Okay, thank you. And so moving into the hubs, do you have any ideas besides Cobeconk where other hubs could go?
Through the mayor to the councillor, we're looking at a two-hub approach. Lindsay is the sort of the main hub, and it will serve this area and the south. Obviously, we have to prioritize Lindsay because I think a lot of development is going to happen here. And then we're looking at Cobeconk as a north hub to service the northern part of the community.
So is there any possibility of looking forward into, bringing back true service centers where they were before, like Bobcaygeon, where they had building and bylaw?
To the mayor, to the councillor, we've looked at all the different models, and I think through our work with the different models and the different locations, we've really come down to feel that from a service delivery perspective, we can look at the best way for us to deliver the building services is through the two hubs. From Cobeconk, you can move outwards fairly well. I think with the Bobcaygeon location, you're right on the edge versus being in the middle. So I think from a delivery perspective, it's better for us to move out from the middle as opposed to from the edge. So okay. It gives us a complete set of services. So for example, in Bobcaygeon, we only ever had a building inspector. We didn't have anyone there from the septic division. So in Cobeconk, we'll have all the services there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Yeo.
On the buttons here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. On the hubs, I had a little concern there myself, but going to electronic permitting, I think will be a huge help in that order, and that's great to hear. My question is, I guess to Suzanne, and coming from the building industry, and you mentioned that they're redoing the building code. Do you know, for information purposes, if there will be a track change sheet provided by the province, or if the city will have access to something like that to give to the customer to track those changes?
Through the mayor to the councillor, at this point, the province hasn't really told us what we're going to get. So we're, from past experience, what they do, we call it a road show. They will set up meetings throughout the province. They're usually not that accessible to Kawartha Lakes. So we end up, if we have to send staff, we're traveling. There's a cost to us. And a lot of times it's a very high level overview of what their code changes are, and they're not overly helpful. But what I can offer is that if history repeats itself, which we hope it will, some of our larger neighbors, Markham being one of the superstars in the past, will put a team on it immediately. They will develop a cross-reference for everyone to use, and then they share it with the province. So that's usually available to us in a short period of time. And if we have something like that, we will share it.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Smeaton.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just three quick questions. One, where's the catchment divide for the north and south? So if the hub was in Quebec and the south hub is in Lindsay, but can people go to either, or will there be a line where you go to Quebec if and you go to Lindsay if? Doesn't really matter. I was just curious, just looking at this whole thing picture-wise.
So through the mayor to the councillor, what we're currently doing is our staff have territories. So basically our rule of thumb right now is our north-south divide is about the Glenarm Road. Can't remember what the one is by Bob Cajun, but we kind of split the city that way. And then each of the inspectors for building have a territory within that north or south. The sewage program just have 2 inspectors, so they have a north and a south. So we're basically looking to keep it similar to that. We may tweak it, but it's going to be similar to that.
Okay. Second question was GIS, just in terms of infrastructure. Is anything shared between the Conservation Authority and us, or are they completely separate? We just, at the Conservation Authority on Thursday, we were presented with some of the GIS mapping, which I understand the programming would be different. Is any of the technology itself being shared, or are they completely separate entities?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So GIS is no longer in development services.
Sorry.
I don't know. It may be more of a question for for Director Bukaboom, but I know in the past we have had data sharing with them. I presume that will still continue, and I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, it's okay. I obviously put a wrong note down for Miss Berry, so I thought I wrote something about GIS. That's my fault. The third one was service fees, the increase being 86%. That's what you're referring to with the service fees going up, which is great. The police service fees. What are those? Just being a rookie, I saw police service fees here, and that is different, and there was an 80% increase there.
Can we keep the questions to the presentation?
Yeah,
And
sure.
we'll keep budget questions to the budget presentation when we debate the budget.
Okay, it was about the service fees that you mentioned. Is that the right line? Am I in the right spot of the budget when you referred to service fees going up?
We're looking at our application fees.
Okay.
Not service fees.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Richard, to Director Hawley. Just 3 questions. When it was brought up about developers, when they come in and to be helped and go through the process, the larger developers, obviously, they have the resources, they have the planners on staff, they have the means to work through their development. But the smaller and the individual developers, they're the ones that I find that. And they expressed to me that it takes longer. You would think it would be the opposite, but is there any way that we can streamline the smaller and medium-sized development inquiries and applications that they can get through quicker, the process?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I mean, we certainly do help. We recognize the smaller developers. We recognize they have some challenges in terms of retaining consultants, so we do try to provide them with as much assistance as we can. Obviously, they will have to retain the expertise that they need to bring applications forward. But I mean, we do try to help them as much as possible to bring their applications forward.
Okay, secondly, when we talked about, for example, 180 Kent Street West in Lindsay, where people come in and they ask, they do inquiries, where we've done away with what I call over-the-counter inquiries, physical inquiries when you come in. And I've been asked several times, like, why we can't bring that back, because we've lifted our restrictions and people would like to have that personal contact with somebody. I mean, email works and telephone works, but there's nothing beats the process where you can walk in and inquire about something and then get an answer. You may not get 100% answer, but at least you be dealing with somebody at that inquiry. Is there any way that we could go back to that system?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think from a service delivery perspective, it's better to have people submit an email, because then you have an understanding of what someone is looking for. If someone just comes in cold to the counter, you can spend an awful lot of time with them, and you may not be able to pull together the right information. We do feel that the way we're doing it now is actually better, and we can get through inquiries more quickly, as opposed to people just simply coming off the counter. I mean, coming off the street. I remember, you can spend an entire day, with counter inquiries, but not necessarily hit the mark and hit it as effectively as you can with dealing with it through email. And we find that, follow-ups are often better that way as well, but it's the initial response usually is better, because we know exactly what they're asking for, but we can pull all that information together for them.
Okay, thanks. And finally, the hubs, and Councillor Warren just hit it right on. At one time, there were true service centers where you could walk in and you would get a multiple assortment of services. Did we canvass the staff, whether the north-south would work better, or what about an east-west? I know when I'm in Omimi, the odd time, I don't go on there all the time, but I do go in and I talk to the staff and they say, we're losing our building inspector. We really need him to stay here. Are they being heard? Because they're on the front line, and I talk to them all the time, and they hear from the people who walk in, who ring them up and ask them for these services. But do we listen to our frontline staff and who are saying these things? And that's just a question, because I think, to me, it's important that they be heard, and that the people be served in the way that it's not a centralized system, it's a decentralized system. Whereas you could have, like we used to have, at least four full service centers.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I mean, we have taken some of that into consideration, but I think at the end of the day, it's about providing the most effective service. And in some instances, I think that when we had the multiple service hubs, we weren't providing that same overall level of service that we can provide in two sort of separate and distinct hubs. And I believe did you want to? Yeah, sure.
So with the current model where we have service centers such as Omimi, you have an inspector that is all alone for the building department. So if he goes out on a call, which he does every day, you don't have customer service anymore for the building department. With the hub system, where you have a clerk up in Cobeconk, we have a couple of inspectors. We're going to have a supervisor and a septic inspector. So from 8:30 to 4:30 every day, you're going to have minimum of a clerk that can answer building-related calls, counter inquiries. You're always going to have customer service. Where right now, if you're going in the summer to Omimi, the inspector might be there for an hour in the morning, and he's gathering his stuff and going for the rest of the day and running the roads. So you're not getting any service for a big chunk of the day. So we feel that the hub system is going to get a complete and fulsome team in each area.
Thank you.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have three questions. One is staff recruitment is an ongoing thing. I know it's tough, but do you have any unique solutions to solve that?
To the mayor, to the councillor, not anything unique other than just keep trying, and hopefully we'll get the staff complement. I mean, we're competing with every other municipality out there. There is generally a shortage of professionals within the planning, engineering, environmental fields right now, just because of all the development pressures and a lot of, if you look at it, a lot of retirements that have happened as well. So there is a bit of a shortage out there. Also, I mean, if you take a look at enrollment that happened during COVID, enrollment in various programs was down. So we're going to have to sort of wait for that bubble to sort of come through. the only thing we can do is just keep trying and keep recruiting and move ahead.
It's funny you bring up retirement, but I'll go past that. How short are we in your staffing needs?
It's in the planning division. I believe we're 5 short at this point in time. Hence, we've gone to the model of service contracts.
Okay. Thank you. My next question is the target is 6,500 units by 2031. I did some quick math. I guess from 2027 to 2031, we're roughly 1,000 units per year on average. We got to hit that. Do you have confidence level there? Like, can you elaborate a bit on that, on how we're going to hit those targets?
Certainly. We do have, so there's a couple of different factors. We do have a lot of units that are draft plan approved. So that is going to help with those first number of years. We do have to invest in some servicing strategies to do some upgrades so that we can hit some of that last part of the 6,500. But from a supply perspective, we have supply for the first part of that time frame, and we just have to hope that the developers are going to develop and have the sales so that we can hit those targets. But I'm confident that we've got enough in the supply, and we'll get other projects draft plan approved sort of in the latter part that will finish making up that supply.
Thank you. My last question is, and it's probably in the details, I may have missed it there, the Farm Fresh program partnered with Peterborough. How do we measure success on that?
Rebecca, speak to that.
Through you, Mayor, obviously to the councillor. The Farm Fresh program, we measure success in a couple of different ways. So part of the program is a consumer-focused local food program. And so for that, we're looking at our own marketing out to the community and how well that is picked up by the local community, as well as a number of local farms that are members of the program. And then the other flip side of that program is actually around some business development work. So this ties into our more general ag economic development program as well. And for that, we're looking at business engagement in programming. For example, last year we ran a local food business development sort of training program. So how we can get these businesses to improve their business models and their own outcomes. So we sort of, hopefully this answers your question, we look at it from the business development side, so engagement in the programs, and business training, and then we're also looking at it on the consumer side, consumer interest and outreach marketing efforts.
Okay, so the people that are farmers that are participating in this, we don't canvass them in terms of, have your sales gone up locally or any data that way?
That is a great question. We don't regularly go through that process. It is done on intervals, but we are not program tracking to that level of detail at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I just want to make one comment to start. I've actually had 2 residents just in the last 2 weeks actually reach out to the planning admin email asking their questions, and it's come back with great information, and both residents have been very happy with that process. So I just want to give you accolades for that. Quick question 2 is, as we move to that electronic application through the building department, I also believe that we have another good story there with Suzanne's department building out some service guides, if you want to just maybe comment on that, because I kind of ran across something last week and flipped it to her, and she says, yeah, we're working on that. So it's a good news story too, if you want to maybe share that with folks.
Sure, through the mayor. We've had it on our to-do list for quite some time, and as you've heard, planning has this 5-person vacancy. We've just come out of the other side of that. So we know what it's like to not have enough time to even get your normal day-to-day work done. And now we're finally this year feeling a little bit of that pressure come off. So we're circling back to our to-do list. And one of those things is to start really ramping up, creating those guides. So that's our winter project. We're going to try and have how-to guides for the do-it-yourselfer to do decks and sheds and garages, to try and make it a more simplistic process to go start to finish, and hopefully be a better experience for the customer.
Great, thank you. I just thought that was a good little tidbit to share as we're going through that model. Just one more question, maybe through economic development. There's been a significant change in provincial grants moving forward. Do you see any changes coming up?
Through the mayor to the councillor. A lot of what you're seeing in the budget was Skills Development Fund programming, which wrapped up in March of 2023. So we'll continue to work with our primary funding streams, really Regional Tourism 8, Organisation 8. We've got a RED grant that we're doing in partnership with Peterborough at the moment. So I think that we'll potentially see those grants come. They just come through the year. So I don't think we're going to see something like Skills Development Fund necessarily, that where it's $1 million grant anytime in the near future, but that could come back again. And we are also waiting, so it's not fully reflected in here, for a renewed contract for the Kawartha Lake Small Business Centre, which should come before March.
Councillor Yule.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to Councillor Ashmore's point about having somebody at the counter. Suzanne's bang on. I don't know how many times myself and other builders would be lined up scrambling to get to the building inspector before 10 o'clock, because that was the only time you got to see him in the whole day. And that was probably only 3 days a week between training and having to do other calls in the morning and stuff. So I know it's in Coboconk, and it may look like I'm thankful for that, but I'm thankful as a builder. I know the other builders will be, that we're going to this model where there's going to be somebody at the counter all the time. It's just absolutely wonderful to hear. And I guess my other question is, it seems like for the first 6 months here, we're going to go to a one hub, or are we going to delay the move until Coboconk renovation is done? And I guess a follow-up to that would be to Mr. Shanks. How confident are you in your building schedule for that closure? Thank you.
So through the mayor to the councillor, for the first part of the question, the OMIMI inspector is staying put in OMIMI while we work through this capital project in Kobe. So my staff have unfortunately had to relocate to Lindsay because the entire office is closed up in Coboconk for this 6-month project. So the second part is to ask Mr. Shanks if 6 months is going to hit it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're very confident.
There you go,
Thank you very
Councillor Yule.
much.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, as I was driving here listening to the news, just saying that the building targets may be changing going forward. Just from listening to the news today.
There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, so we have a mover and seconder. All in favor? Thank you, Richard. Thank you to your team. Great job this year. I know the pressures you've been under, and thank you for doing what you do. And keep up the good work, and we'll look forward to a successful 2024. Now move to Public Works, Director Brian Robinson.
Do you want to give like 2 minutes just for the upstairs staff?
Yeah, we'll give a minute or so to shuffle bodies. Whenever you're ready, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Council. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for having us here. I'm going to walk through Public Works overview for 2024 budget. Go to the next slide. So this is our org chart at a very, very high level. Public Works is responsible for operational maintenance for water, wastewater, solid waste, fleet, capital, fleet and roads operations. So I have with me here the bulk of the leadership group. Looks like we're missing one person, but that's okay. So the first group, our administration, we have the executive assistant to the Director of Public Works is Shelley Harrington. Shelley has a group of 9 administrative assistants that report directly to her to support the groups, with the exception of Fleet and Transit. The Fleet and Transit AAs report directly to the manager of Fleet and Transit. Roads operations, we have 3 managers. We have Oliver Vigilius, that most people know here, Chris Porter as well, and newest of the team is Tom Hopper. So he's the manager for the west area. Chris is east, Oliver is Lindsay area and citywide projects and so on and so forth. Waste management operations, the manager is David Kerr. That says waste management operations is technically still environmental services. Environmental services used to encompass both water, wastewater, and waste, separate divisions now. Fleet services and transit services are both under one manager, Rod Porter. So Rod, again, has that portfolio with respect to both of those areas. So it's a big group. And last but not least, Amber Hayter, manager of water, wastewater services, looks after all of the city's water and wastewater drinking water systems, and supports the community services, the community group wells and hubs as well. So again, large portfolio, but this is the core team for Public Works. I'm going to walk through the presentation itself. As a high-level overview, again, kind of mentioned this already, we provide oversight for all those divisions. We have a large focus within Public Works on program delivery, especially legislative compliance. Doesn't matter which division you look through within Public Works, there's some legislation that guides and directs the work that we do, in addition to council direction. We align with a strategic plan, looking at continual improvement, responsible government, fiscal accountability, strategic implementation of everything that we do. Council sees most of those through our reports, and we receive direction that way. We do combined have about a $63 million operating budget expense when you look at both the tax base and the user rate budgets combined. And we have multiple multi-million-dollar operational contracts, whether it's a waste contract, the water wastewater operations contract, plowing contracts for winter control, etc. So it's a large group with a big portfolio. Specifically, when you start to break down into the individual divisions, again, administration, there's 10 individuals within that group. That group provides oversight for roads, solid waste, water, wastewater activities. Again, some of the activities that's supported through that is payroll, finance, customer service, records management, permitting, clothing orders for all the staff, visa reconciliations, etc. There's a lot of other items that group does to support the day-to-day operations of our division. Roads operations, there's 128 full-time employees within that group, responsible for maintenance of our road inventory. And I'm not going to go through all of the stuff that group does, because it would take a couple of pages of slides just to go through the activities that group does on a daily basis. Some of these specialized areas within that group, though, is our locate. So the locate program for the municipality, we locate all municipal infrastructure, whether it's water, sewer, sanitary sewer. Our communications network and infrastructure that is owned by the city is all located through and by our locators. Traffic lights, street lights, and stormwater infrastructure is managed through the roads operations group, so the flushing, general maintenance, etc. The traffic street lights is a program that's growing focus. looking at pressures within that group. Probably in the coming years, you'll see some requests to provide some initial support to make sure that we can stay ahead of that demand. Nothing in this year's budget for that, though. And agreements. So the roads operations manages a number of legal agreements, whether it's a limited service agreement, whether it's snowmobile club agreements, there's boundary road agreements with our neighboring municipalities. We manage all those through our roads operations group. Moving forward to waste management. The waste management council is aware of some of the changes going on within the legislation due to producer responsibility. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but right now waste management has 22.7 FTE. The 0.7 is because there's part-time hours that really work out to the calculation in the FTE. It's not 0.7 of a person. Responsibility for oversight of the landfills. We have 5 active landfills within the municipality. We have 11 closed landfills. It's often forgotten that there is a legislative responsibility and a work program to manage those 11 closed landfill sites. So every time we close the landfill, it's not closed and forgotten. There's an ongoing work program to support that. The waste management team is responsible for waste recycling, collection programs, diversion initiatives associated with regulatory compliance again. So you look at the amount of new programs that have come on board for construction demolition, diversion, mattress diversion, some of the legislation around removal of tires, no longer accepting them at landfills, our recycling program, they're all led and sponsored through our waste management division. Whoops, go back, sorry, I went too far. Transit operations, our transit group, 26.4 FTE, primarily that is both full and part-time drivers. Historically, that group's only had part-time drivers. We've recently moved to a kind of a hybrid where we have some full-time, some part-time drivers. That entire group is responsible for providing safe, reliable, and cost-effective transit services to the city. So we also run our conventional and what we call limo, which is limited mobility and our Lindsay mobility to meet customer service needs. So there's a general programming and as well as I wouldn't call it a dial ride, but it's a special booking service for people with special needs for transportation. And we also run a charter services or offer a charter service program out of that group. It's available upon request. The applications and so on are on the city website. So it's our transit group. Fleet. We have 16.5 FTE within that fleet division right now. They're responsible for all non-emergency fleet within the city, from procurement to maintenance to disposal. It's full life cycle for that. We maintain in-house all of our, the bulk of our, I won't say all, but the bulk of our large equipment. So that's the dump trucks and so on and so forth that we provide that service in-house. Most of the small fleet are maintained and serviced through small operational contracts with local providers. And that's just a balance that we have in order to ensure that we can meet the needs of all the equipment. I think last time I checked, there was over 430. There's probably more now individual pieces of equipment that we maintain within that division. Next, the water wastewater group. There's 18 full-time equivalent within that group. Again, 21 drinking water systems, 6 wastewater systems, including all the distribution collection systems are managed through that group. Not surprisingly, City of Kawartha Lakes, due to the unique size, is a unique municipality when we look at specifically water wastewater. I don't know if there's another municipality out there that has anywhere close to the amount of infrastructure that we're responsible for maintaining. So again, the program includes adherence to the drinking water quality management standard, which is again a legislative responsibility for our how and what we do, documentation, records, looking at risk and management of those programs. The bulk water systems, so the dispensing systems for contractors to obtain bulk water, sewer surcharge agreements, which is another bylaw that council's passed to look at how or the quality of the effluent from certain providers that are exceeding the standard and limits, and putting agreements in place for those costs, and the backwater valve subsidy program. looking at, as I mentioned before, they also support the community facility wells system. So those are all of our divisions within Public Works, supporting all of that, all the programs. Looking at 2023 accomplishments, again, in the effort of keeping the program brief and high level, just flagging a few of the items that happened in 2023. We're looking at, through our customer service group, implementing a new electronic permitting software. We're in the final stages of wrapping that program up, looking at probably a go live early in the new year. And what that is going to see is a drastic improvement for anybody that's submitting a permit through Public Works. We process road occupancy, road closure permits, entrance permits, half load exemption permits, oversized load permits. They are all processed through our group. Right now it's very paper-based and email-based, so we're looking at a program that's going to streamline that for all involved, both internal and external. Reviewing and obtaining council direction on producer responsibility. So we've had some conversations with council about the impacts of that legislation for producer responsibility related to recyclable programs and source separated organics. So those were significant initiatives that have been ongoing for a while now, but we have some direction moving forward for those programs, and which is going to guide our budget and some changes to our budget that council's been made aware of moving forward. And we'll have those discussions as we do budget deliberations later on this fall. Implementation of our 4th transit route. So as we expanded from 3 routes to 4th route, which is the orange route, including redesign of those transit services to help support the growing community. Part of the, well, again, into the future budget changes on other things coming forward, but that was one of the implementations for 2023. Very successful, a lot of positive feedback from the public, and we'll continue to make those improvements and small tweaks to those programs as we move forward. Grant applications. So one of the staff, Manager Porter, Chris Porter, I guess I have to clarify because I do have 2 Porters, applied for a grant through training and obtained nearly $100,000 grant to train our road staff, which is an amazing support for our group, affording opportunity for training to our staff that typically wouldn't be able to do that due to budget constraints and other timing. So they've been at training last week and are, I think, wrapping up tomorrow. So there's a number of people up in Sault Ste. Marie doing that training. So it's a fantastic initiative and I think well received from our staff as well. And 2023 fleet procurement processes. So I know the other Manager Porter, Rod Porter, has been looking at a number of process changes and improvements within our procurement processes to look at not only how we buy our core fleet, but also the supporting services for that, whether it's the fuel system, our GPS system that are in all of our equipment, so on. So there's been a lot of improvements through 2023 on how we manage and procure our fleet. 2024 priorities. So looking at review and implementation of electronic improvements for administrative. So whether it's road patrol software, right now everything's heavily paper-based. It's solely paper-based. Our staff are driving the roads, taking records, they're documenting things on paper. The paper is then processed through a number of different people, getting to the right hands in order to make sure that information makes it through. Again, the permits, water, wastewater, logbooks, are all looking to move to an electronic based process to support both more efficient record management as well as improve the process for our staff as well. Increasing and expanding landfill diversion. So in addition to the changes in legislation going on through producer responsibility, we're also continuing to manage our own diversion projects. So targeting increase in mattress diversion and expansion of our construction demolition waste diversion program, as well as the textile program that council recently made permanent, looking at how we can improve that process, get the communication out to the public and improve those programs and experiences for everybody through that diversion. And again, the ultimate goal through that is to expand the life of our landfills. For every ton of waste that doesn't go to the landfill, we're extending the life of our landfills, therefore diverting capital costs related to the landfill needs. Transit level of service. So this is what I mentioned there before, is we're looking this year to, in accordance with the current transit master plan, to expand hours of service. So that's there's budget within that transit group. You'll see some cost increases within transit, and that's primarily what the cost increases there is, to add hours to the program to expand that that portfolio. Water wastewater hybrid model review and SCADA improvements. So that is looking at how we operate our water wastewater systems. As mentioned, right now we have in-house services. We also have a contractor, Aqua, currently that looks at all of our, or that operates our, not all, they operate the bulk of our drinking water systems and all the wastewater treatment systems. We operate all of the distribution and collection systems, the Lindsay water treatment plant, and a couple of the smaller drinking water systems. So our commitment is to continue to look at that program, ensure that it meets the operational needs, it's being operated in the most effective way. So that review will happen through 2024. Ultimately, council will see recommendations if there's proposed changes on that in the future through 2024. And SCADA improvements. SCADA is the digital or electronic control record management system for our operations. So it involves both how the plant is operated as well as all the data and records coming out of that system. So there was a report that was prepared identifying the system. It's about, well, probably pushing over 10 years old now. It's electronic. Everybody knows how old their computer and how slow their computer runs after 10 years. So it's due for a refresh, upgrade, and modernization. So that program has been approved. The first stages of identifying what needs to happen is occurred. And now we're into the implementation phase of improving the SCADA systems within our drinking water systems. And again, I flagged in here fleet procurement because it's going to be an ongoing challenge for the municipality. As everybody's aware, if they've looked to buy a personal vehicle recently, a vehicle that 4 or 5 years ago used to cost about 50 grand, is now about 80 grand. And that implication translates through 400 pieces of equipment within our group and the cost pressures within that. So looking at how we procure, how we look at what equipment we're using, and ensuring that we're delivering the most appropriate equipment to the resources that we need to. And there's some examples of that within roads right now, where instead of buying a single axle plow truck, we've bought an F550, I believe it is. It's a smaller version of a truck that meets the needs of the operations, and actually ultimately saved some significant costs through that capital program. 2024 budget pressures. So contractual increases. Calcium chloride is a pressure. We have seen a significant increase on that. Again, I flagged this for our leadership group on a number of occasions. There's some, I think, well, I have to go back and take a look at where the budget netted out, but there's probably a $400,000 pressure to maintain a status quo service level on that one line alone. So we're looking at how that works and what the implications are on that. And that's just due to purely the cost increase of the material. Equipment repair, we've also seen a significant increase in maintaining our equipment and repairing our equipment. Primarily it's parts, again, coming out of the States. The cost to procure repair and parts and pieces for trucks and equipment is going up significantly. General cost increases on our operational contracts, the ones I mentioned before, the Aqua contract, the Miller contract for waste, etc. Fleet equipment costs, again, the capital component I flagged before. Transition to producer responsibility, April 1, 2024. So that program, again, we've reviewed with council previously, but there are going to be cost implications coming forward on that. And again, future amendments to the proposed current budgets that you have relating to those decisions that have been made. So we'll bring forward those we'll bring forward those current changes to the budget in future discussion to council. Landfill diversion efforts, again, preparation for source separated organic program, SSO. looking at what that program is going to look like, the cost implications, how it's going to roll forward, and getting some firm direction on that. Adherence to OREG 406, so there's excess soil, so that's a regulation that really controls the disposal of excess soil from any capital or operations project. There's been some recent legislation on proposed amendments to OREG 406, so we're monitoring that as we move forward. But ultimately, we don't have the ability in years past to simply collect soil off of any project, get a quick written agreement, and then dispose of it on private property. There's a whole process for monitoring, measuring, and disposing of that excess soil. Again, our transit service expansion, which I mentioned previously, growth. So we're, as everybody's, well, we just heard from the Development Services Group, there's a lot of growth coming, which means new infrastructure, new roads, new everything. So that expansion of those, that infrastructure is going to continue to put pressure on our annual operating budget to maintain all that infrastructure. So assumption of new roads and municipal services. And within water, wastewater, one of the primary challenges within there right now is our chemical contract and the cost of that chemicals to maintain operation at our water plants. And I believe that's it for the presentation. Happy to accept any questions that may be. If you need support or if there's any direct questions to any one of the managers, feel free.
Thank you, Director. Can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Smeaton. Questions? I have a lineup here. Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, 3 quick shout outs that are important, I believe, to this presentation. Just that we've been focusing on communication. Deputy Mayor Richardson did, part of her campaign this year was to encourage the whole concept of how are we communicating with the public. I just want to say, seeing Ms. Harrington here, the EAs deserve a shout out in our community. Every time I call or email or need to get through, especially for someone who's just learning the ropes in the very beginning, so polite, and that front line is really important. There's always help there. And that goes for Manager Porter. When this orange bus line came in Ward 5, there were a lot of minor concerns, but they were concerns. A lot of them were seniors. And he not only helped, but he often went to meet with these people. And I saw that firsthand. So these things go a long way in selling this community for what we want to be selling it as does the limo service. That was my third one. That's a real great thing for us to have that people often comment to me about. They can't believe we have it when they find out what it's for. I had a question about traffic and lights. Seeing that in here, I'm used to dealing with Supervisor Kelly in engineering for traffic and Manager Farquhar in engineering for lights. Is that a switch, or have I just been wrong, or am I? I'm just curious now if there's maybe something happening that I need to know.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, you're not wrong. So you're going to continue to work with Manager Kelly or Supervisor Kelly and Manager Farquhar with respect to capital infrastructure, with replacing new infrastructure. Again, the difference in distinguishing between the Engineering Corporate Assets Group and the Public Works Group is operations. So we have the resources within Public Works to replace, to manage, breakdowns and so on. That's the group that we have within Public Works. So we currently have 1 bucket truck and 2 people operating that bucket truck that maintain all of the traffic lights, all of the street lights, as well as on an annual basis put up and take down all of the decorations around the city for Remembrance Day, for Christmas, for et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of work for 1 truck. So they're doing what they can to manage that resource right now, but the pressures continue to grow as we add more and more subdivisions, more and more lights, more and more everything's coming forward. So again, nothing in this year's budget, but just it's a growing pressure within operations.
Okay. And the last question through you, Mr. Mayor, was just in terms of fleet procurement. Is there an auction situation like there is with police vehicles when vehicles are finished?
Yeah, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we I don't know if it's an annual basis. For the most part, it has been annual. When we dispose of fleet, so they're end of their life cycle, they've met the limits within the council policy for non-emergency fleet and our management directive. We send everything through auction and work with our finance group to make sure that fleet's been disposed of properly. And then the revenues that come back from any of that fleet sales comes back into the fleet program for future capital.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I got a quick question for you there. You mentioned the Ontario Good Roads Training. Could you explain that to me, please?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Ontario Good Roads Association is a roads association across the province. They have a number of programs to support municipalities. They're made up from both private industry, municipal sector as well. So they run a number of training programs. So again, what happened through this process is they had an opportunity for training. We reached out, made an application, said, hey, we'd love to take advantage of the opportunity for this training. And ultimately, we weren't expecting such a positive outcome, but we received a significant grant opportunity there to send our staff to training. So they're providing training specifically to roads operations, roads management, and other programs, again, specifically for roads.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you. This might be a bit of a loaded question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. We're sitting here and we're looking at some very heavy budget pressures in your department. And I mean, a lot of that is something that we have to do. And I also recognize the fact that when you do move to the new vehicle model, in the long run, you are saving that maintenance issue cost that's ongoing too. So I recognize that in impact and how we have to do that. My question is, with these type of pressures, is this council going to have to think about some of the levels of service expectations out there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it is a bit of a loaded question. Happy to answer it. So step back to a little bit on the fleet. Absolutely, we look at the appropriate life cycles for a fleet on a regular basis. We have a table that's part of the management directive for the non-emergency fleet that looks at, what is the life cycle we should be replacing our vehicle at on an average basis. So pickup trucks, in the 10 to 12 year range. When we get to a point where a vehicle is beyond operational maintenance, is when we bring that forward. We don't send vehicles out prematurely and do our best not to keep them beyond their life cycle, because ultimately the operational cost of keeping that piece of equipment on the road far exceeds the capital annual replacement cost of that piece of equipment. So that's the kind of the first piece on the fleet. I fully agree. And again, all that vetting is done beforehand before we bring our projects forward. With respect to the second part of the question, there's a lot of challenges with respect to level of service. We have within Public Works anyways, a number of specific documents that outline our directed level of service from council. If we're going to continue to provide that same level of service, we build our budgets in that fashion. The pressures are there. The costs are climbing on an annual basis. And again, just that one case alone with respect to calcium chloride, for everybody's benefit here, that's the dust control for our gravel roads. To maintain that has a significant pressure. When you look at our operational budget across the board, we are heavily staff, equipment, and material based. We do have a significant portion that's contract as well, but the staffing levels and the staffing wages and so on, they're uncontrollable pressures to my budget. They are what they are. They come forward. The only real ability I have to lower the budget is looking at the contractual side of things, and that just is a direct level of service. If we're not going to hire a contractor to do brushing, we're not doing brushing. If we're not going to have that contractor there to support pothole patching, that's a direct level of service impact. And our staff are challenged on a daily basis to manage those types of things.
Thank you for that. And I mean, it's good for us to put that in our minds moving forward too, because those are real pressures that, and it is for the greater good of the entire city of Kawartha Lakes. We're not word specific. I mean, it affects everyone. So I do recognize that answer. I know it was a bit loaded, but I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. So thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Brian. Just a couple questions. There's might be for Amber actually. There's a program in Fenelon Falls to disconnect the like overflow, so you don't get overflow at the wastewater treatment plant. I'm wondering if there are similar programs for other urban areas that are on wastewater.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, maybe I'll start off, and if Amber wants to supplement in, she can. The mandatory disconnect program that was piloted in Fenelon Falls, it was more of a mandatory connect program. So again, there's a group that looked at both pieces of. The pilot that went forward was looking at people that are not connected to the drinking water system that should be in accordance with our bylaw, and have them connect. So that there was a number of iterations that was back and forth. The disconnect program hasn't really kicked off. There is a review going on of the wastewater system in Fenelon Falls. There's a contractor that was up doing a number of CCTV works, both in, I think, in Bob Cajun and Fenelon. So the actual program to disconnect is being led through our engineering and corporate assets group with support of operations. So I don't have a definitive when that's going to happen, how that's going to happen, or where, but absolutely it's definitely a concern of an operational side when we have cross connections and we have stormwater heavily infiltrating into our sanitary sewers, and we're forced to treat that at our wastewater plant. So yeah, it's an ongoing program.
Good, because that's been on the books for a while, so it's good that we're actually moving forward with that. I've had a lot of questions about greening the fleet, and we've gone back and forth a couple times, and staff are probably aware that there's a grant through the Ontario government to bring EV charging stations to businesses and municipalities. It's a big grant. So just going forward, if you get that infrastructure in the next year or so, will you be looking at greening the fleet? Because I don't believe we have any electric vehicles. Thank you.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Staff brought a report to council previous to this council, and there's going to be an update coming back in the new year. That report was specifically about transition of our fleet to electric vehicles, what that looks like, programs, potentials, opportunities. The current plan is to look at the potential of, in 2024, the procurement of a couple of vehicles that are electric. The requirement there is the accompanying electrical charging infrastructure. Where is it going to go? What's it going to look like? How is it being managed, etc. So that is currently and will be ongoing reviewed by staff, multiple departments within the city, the CEO included, on how we're going to roll that program. The bulk of the initial is likely going to be small vehicles, cars, vans, etc. And what that program looks like. I will say that the fleet department's doing a number of other initiatives as well. One of the things that is currently in place and being piloted is the use of hydrogen generation and to supplement the fuel. So we have a couple pieces of equipment right now running on hybrid hydrogen diesel, and we're going to continue to monitor that and see where the benefits are within that program.
Just there's some clean hydrogen and not so clean hydrogen, just for your information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, a lot of questions of mine got answered, so I'm just drilling down on two here. I want to go back to the procurement of fleet vehicles. You said your example of a pickup truck, 10 to 12 years. So I get a sense that there's flexibility there. You look, there's buy two pickup trucks, and one of them at 10 years, it's got to be replaced. But the other one, you look at it, it's got a couple more years of life. Is there flexibility there, or is it like at so many kilometers, bang, it's got to be replaced? How do you look at that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the policy and the supplemental management directive have a definitive schedule, and it says that at the 10-year mark a truck gets replaced. What we do within our operations is the manager does a fantastic job working with his staff to rotate fleet. So if you look at a pickup truck, for instance, We sometimes, well, we will patrol in winter for those. We'll put, I don't know, a couple 100,000 kilometers through one, no, not even through one season. What's 100,000 a year on a patrol truck. So if we leave that patrol truck as only a patrol truck, 2 years, 2.5 years, that vehicle's done. So what we'll do is we'll take that truck, we'll rotate it through other areas that don't put as many kilometers on that truck to try to extend the life of that vehicle to make that 10-year mark. At the 10-year mark, we'll look at the quality of that vehicle, the ability of us to maintain that vehicle, whether it's starting to rust out, what kind of damages it's sustained, and so on. And we'll make a decision. Can we last it for another year, maybe 2 years, or do we get rid of that piece of vehicle or that piece of equipment at that designated time? On rare occasions, council will see vehicles that aren't 10 years old because of whatever's happened with them, and we'll get rid of them early because of extenuating circumstances based on the condition of the vehicle and the use of it. So that's all evaluated at the frontline level before we bring all those budgets forward.
Great to hear. Speaking of road patrol, a constituent asked me this question. I thought, good question. And if you haven't had a chance to look into this, that's fair. But drones. He asked me. He said, "Why can't we use drones for road patrol?" And there's pros and cons with everything. Is that something other municipalities are doing? Is this something you've had a chance to look into?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, honestly, no, I haven't looked at that. I think probably some of the limiting factors for us would be just our road network itself. We need to patrol 2,700 kilometers of road, so that would be a drastic network of drones. Part of the other challenge I think that might be with that program, is the ability to document record. I know there is AI for road patrol, where there is some automated equipment that mounts onto trucks as you're driving. It records potholes, it records discontinuities, and builds that. So that's something that we have explored, we have looked at. Obviously, there's a cost impact to those, but as far as the drones, no, but I'll definitely take it away from here.
Okay, that's something I think to look into, but I also recognize, can a drone measure potholes? That could be difficult, but there might be something there that can help us, possibly. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't want a drone on, though. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the director, on your second last point about new assumption of roads, I know, as an example, one of the roads in the ward to represent, the company actually took over the maintenance of the road, and you engaged with the company to basically have a limited service agreement on steroids. Basically, they do the whole thing. Are you expanding that program where, for example, aggregate companies take over the assumption and the maintenance of the in this case, gravel road? Are you expanding that because these companies are coming forward and they're doing it, and also, you have cottagers, you have not cottager associations, but associations in general that feel that they'd like to partner and with Public Works and work with them, not only work with their local representative, the councillor, but work with the city in trying to find ways of more efficient service. But my main question was about these companies that are engaged in agreements with the city, and is that something that's going to be expanding in the Kawartha Lakes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor, I'm not exactly sure of the situation you're talking about here, but if there is I believe, is this the quarry that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's in Fox Road. It was a quarry in the end of Fox Road on the east side, north of Omemee, between Omemee and Downeyville, whereas the company took over the road itself because, they use it, and it's not a designated haul route, but, there's a lot of use on that road and the structure of it and the integrity of the road. So they took it upon themselves to apply aggregate, apply gravel, grade it, and because they know that they're using it the most. And that's what I'm referring to, Fox Road, as an example.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor. So again, there's a lot of unique nuances to that decision and agreement. I wouldn't say that the company has taken it upon themselves to maintain the road. They have agreed to, again, in conversation with our engineering and corporate assets group, to provide some additional material to support the improvement of that road based on their use. If those unique situations arise again in the future, absolutely, those conversations will happen between engineering, public works, and the applicants to deal with those situations independently. Are we proactively going out and looking for those? No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's good. But could they include the local councillor when they're, because you have residents who are asking about, an improvement to their road, and then we do find out that the company is going to do it, and then there's been an arrangement made with the company, which is great. I mean, it's a good idea, but I think that we need to sort of loop in the public when we do these things in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Smeaton.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had a question that might be for you and it might be for the CAO. When Councillor Warren brought up electric fleet, I know often when we see, like Winnipeg, for example, just purchased 12 electric buses, and we often see it through a transit authority. And I grew up in a town that was a small town like ours, and it grew, and it ended up having a transit authority. So they ended up, a lot of decisions you would see made were by the transit authority, and then it would come to council. Is there a tipping point population-wise where municipalities enter the arena of transit authorities, or is that I've just now, because of you, wondered, how do transit authorities come about in certain municipalities? Is there criteria that deals with population, or is it just a council decision? Or I'm just curious, because sometimes you see cities that have transit authorities. I wondered if it's just big cities have transit authorities and small towns don't.
Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take an initial crack at that one, and if the CEO wants to add on, he can. Within the city right now, again, the transit group is run primarily by our operation. We used to have a transit committee made up of council, the public, and staff going through the decision based on kind of the repetitive nature and the level of need and involvement from that committee from prior council was to absolve that committee. So if there's a desire to reinitiate something, that's a conversation we could have, but I don't think that there's, not that I'm aware of anyways, a specific criteria for formation of a public transit authority.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just through you, typically those authorities are in two-tier systems. So because we're a single tier, it's entirely sort of contained within our jurisdiction. That authority allows for other lower tiers to be members and part of that as well.
And just for clarification, it was by no means a suggestion. It literally was a brainstorm. When I heard that, I often see transit authority with big cities, and I just wondered if that was the connection. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a mover and seconder. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Director Robinson and your team. I know the pressures you're under and how difficult some of the decisions are. Just keep on plugging away. We appreciate it. Thank you. We'll take 2 minutes while these folks get back to their jobs and we get the folks from corporate services. Okay, we'll get back to it. We'll hear from corporate services, and then we'll take a 10-minute break after that. Director Bokaboom, whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council and all staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present corporate services budget today. Before we get into too much of the overview, I'd like to present the team that is the masters behind everything that we do. So to my right, we have the Manager of Communications, Sherry Davidson. Nicole McKean, Manager in People Services, is integral to the whole budget by virtue of counting up all the people and the staffing and the costs associated with that. Thank you, Nicole. We have our Chief Information Officer, Leanna Patterson, very integral part, again, of all of the People Services budget here. We have a new face, the new Chief Information Officer that I don't believe Council has met yet, Peter Evans. Welcome. Oh, and I have a request for you to stand up, Peter, and meet everyone. Thank you. Big plans in IT coming in the coming years. Starting on my far left is Nadine Bloomfield, mastermind behind the new budget presentation book this year and continuing on our vision of modernizing this document. Carolyn Daines, all of you are probably very familiar after many, many years as the treasurer at the City of Kawartha Lakes. Brenda Stonehouse is the formerly the OSM, Office of Strategy Management, being renamed Strategy and Innovation in 2024. And Linda Liotti, our resident tax expert in utility billing. So thank you to the team for all their support during this budget preparation.
Do you have some purchasing people here? Fine.
Carolyn Daines is responsible for purchasing, but let me look over my shoulder, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. We have the whole purchasing team here. Yes, and obviously they have a vested interest because the moment this budget is passed, their real work begins in prioritizing and getting our procurements out. So our org chart is communications, advertising and marketing, people services, information technology, revenue and taxation, treasury, strategy and innovation. Obviously, I need the help of all the experts behind me because none of these areas that are the sum of all parts is the information I might know. As far as a department overview, we're responsible to lead, monitor, and manage all of the corporate functions for the city. Some of which are the financial and human resource management, effective corporate communications, strategic information technology, managing tax and utility levies and collections, and the new strategy and innovation. The administration division consists of 2 FTE, which is the general administration of the Corporate Services Department, as council liaison, SMT representative, working with our expert colleagues at that table, responsible for the corporate services budget preparation and strategic planning for the department and the city. People Services has 24 full-time equivalents and responsible for all things people services, recruitment, training, employee benefits, labor relations, et cetera, et cetera. Communications, Advertising, and Marketing Division comprises of 3 FTE, and they provide strategic communication, marketing, media relation with some the concept of increasing public awareness and engagement with the city programs. Information Technology Division includes 20 FTE and obviously maintains the electronic systems, infrastructure, applications maintenance, client support, and providing liaison to the departments to modernize, automate, streamline. Director Robinson mentioned a few of those programs in his presentation. Director Hawley also discussed some streamline customer citizen portal. That's where our IT division is integral. The Treasury Division is 16 FTE and has been so for quite a few years. They oversee all things financial, investments, debt management, financial accounting, inventory. We do the financial statement preparation, as well as internal cash flow monitoring, variance reporting, cash forecasting, and oversight of the entire city budget process. Revenue and Taxation has 14 FTE and responsible to assess the base management, the property tax and the levying of the bills, utility billing and collections, and a centralized accounts receivable for the city. Lastly, and most new, is the Strategy and Innovation Division, which comprises of 3 FTE. As you've been working with on the new city strategic plan, as that completes, we'll be working on scorecards and alignment of all of those initiatives across the city. It's also an independent consultant and project manager to lead and support continuous improvement, of which we work with all divisions on that regard. Some accomplishments. We are working to update the long-term financial plan based on the 2022-2023 investments of council and soon to be the 24. We've negotiated and ratified several union agreements and in progress on several others. Update to the communication strategy is underway and will be taking place between 2024 and 27. We've successfully migrated onto the cloud-based SharePoint program in collaboration with the records management. We've streamlined the purchasing policy and management directive, looking to streamline with our partners in the divisions there. We have undertaken a very large project to replace all water meters, so we've commenced with Bobcaygeon and Fenelon area for this year, and when we get to our 24 priorities, let you know where we're going next. And we're currently working on the development of Council's 2024 to 27 strategic plan. In 24, we'll be turning our attention to implementing automation. So one such area is streamline automation of the city's organizational chart within our financial system. The org charts you see in your current budget book are all prepared manually. So we're looking to have real-time position control embedded in the corporation. We're going to implement the communication strategy, continue implementation of workflow software and customer citizen portal. So again, that covers all of the discussions you've been hearing in the individual departments. We are an integral partner in all of that. We're going to continue improving the expense management and an upgrade to the accounts payable system, or ScanMan. We would like to launch a pilot of the remote water meter reads. We're looking to a Lindsay area for a pilot there. So once the water meters are replaced, which Lindsay is next after Bobcaygeon and Fenelon, those meters will have the capability to be able to read from a tower, and we're looking to implement a small pilot and see how that goes for this city. We will implement the city scorecard to support your citywide strategic plan and monitor progress and have updates available for you. We would like to develop and implement standard process mapping. So as new staff come on board, it's a training tool, but also end-to-end process review to streamline and continue modernizing where the various departments cross over each other. We're going to continue streamlining and modernizing the budget process, so look to you for feedback on this year's process and what you might like to see differently. In terms of budget pressures in this book, we have an investment in staffing and corporate services this year. We are investing in staff recognition, the collaboration between departments, getting back to a post-COVID world on social interactions, and relying on partners to help deliver our programs. Investing heavily in staff training, a lot on cross-departmental processes, IT, making the best of our systems and how we could streamline and reduce manual efforts. There's a minor increase in advertising costs, somewhat related to the cessation of the local newspapers and how we reach the public on that regard. An increase in IT contracted services is comprised of mostly our software licensing, continuing to pay those maintenance costs, et cetera, for all of our programs. And there ends the Corporate Services Department, Mr. Mayor and Council. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Let's get a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Perry, Councillor Joyce. Councillor Warren, you have a question.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Do we still have in-house the Sigma 6 Lean program?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Thank you. Great question. I'm very passionate on that. Obviously, I was one of the certified black belts years ago. So the new division rebranded strategy and innovation, that is included in that portfolio, and it was included in the OSM office as well. So with that division over now with corporate services, we'll continue on that lean and continuous improvement.
And through that, do we have anybody in-house that, not dedicated, but really looks for grants in your portfolio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that will also be included in the strategy and innovation. There's a position in there that will have the responsibility of a portion of the large grants. Asset management also uncovers more capital driven grants, but yes, we would like to more exclusively chase down some of those dollars for the corporation and the grants.
I think economic development also looks at grants. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Through you to Director Buchabim. As far as your IT, and welcome, Peter, I haven't met you yet, but I know your staff are excellent up there, and the technicians, they can you know, correct something that ever went wrong, or they're very proactive in what they do. Because when I've dealt with them, it's phenomenal what they can do. Everything is so relied on technology, and of course a couple of years ago we had an issue. It was nothing to do with us per se, as to an external weather thing, that water coming in, and we lost about a week. We were down for a week. However, we were able to, thanks to their skills, we were able to retrieve a lot of the information, if not all of the information that we lost, the information technology. So everything we have, is it put on a cloud, or is it put on a hard drive, or because it's so important? Like, you're so dependent on this technology, and I know I don't have much patience if my technology doesn't work. I'm just not that technical type that would do that. However, we have our experts here, and so are we prepared enough for any issues that may come? I know we're pretty proactive in backing up our information, like our hardware and our software. So is everything based on a cloud, and our backups? Because we have so many different departments. Does IT look after just basically everything, or do you branch it out as to who's responsible for backing up information? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the only question I can answer without the help of our expert new Chief Information Officer is that yes, IT is responsible for every division within the City of Kawartha Lakes, but I'll let Peter explain more about the cloud.
Welcome, Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor. We do right now do it backup in-house. We have a vendor that we do use that assists us with that. We are looking at cloud in the future, but currently we do all do it on site through our server systems, and then we also back that up through backup tapes. And we have a team that actually monitors that, and they have recurring backups that are on schedule.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to actually see this new department of the strategy and innovation, just because I know we're in a rapidly changing environment. And you will be working with all the departments. Do you see this department actually projecting a reduction in consultant costs across the board, having something like this more internal?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's an excellent question. As we do a review and modernize continuous improvement, on top of the growing demand, however, is part of the issue. So while we may be able to do it more efficiently and more streamlined, the balance of addressing the new growth and the new servicing within the city of Kawartha Lakes could be a balancing act. But yes, the idea is to always try to reduce costs where possible through a review or a continuous improvement, but it may only allow us to usurp that savings with the pressure of the expanded services coming.
Councillor Joyce.
Councillor Richardson asked my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a mover and seconder. All in favor? And that's done. Thank you, and thank you all you good folks in corporate services for all the varied things you do and have done over the past year, and our purchasing group at the back as well. And we look forward to a successful 2024. Thanks. We'll take 10 minutes. We'll come back at 10 after 11. Let's get back at it. So we're moving into community services, and it's good to see that Director Shanks is in the pink today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just, obviously I'm dressed up trick or treat, everybody. I would like to add a little bit of levity to today's discussion, since today is fairly serious. And for those of you that are wondering, no, it's not Liberace. No, it's not the Barbie theme similar to customer services. Many of you know the movie Dumb and Dumber. So, Community Services Department, within the presentation, our org chart, Craig Shanks, Director of Community Services. We do have some other staff here with us today. So, Leanne Donnelly, our Executive Assistant, who looks after the administration and courier side of things within the department. James Smith, our Manager of Building and Property. Upstairs, I believe we also have two of the supervisors with Building and Property, being Alex Welch, who's the Supervisor of Facility Management Operations, and Mike Hasted, the Supervisor of Capital and Special Projects in Building and Property. Our Customer Services Manager, Steve Babcock's here, and our Parks and Recreation Manager, Jen Johnson, is here. We also have some of our supervisors, I believe, upstairs from Parks and Recreation. If they're not all here, I'm going to mention them anyway. So Heidi Fisher, Supervisor of Recreation Complex Services Supervisor. Ryan Smith, Supervisor of Capital and Special Projects. Mike Goodhand, our South Area Supervisor. Tessa Smith, our North Area Supervisor. Shelley Cooper, our Community Partnerships and Program Supervisor, as well as Bashar Saeed, our Central Parks Supervisor. And the managers that are down on the floor, you will be hearing from each of them as they're going to give an overview of each of their divisions shortly. General overview of the department as a whole. So again, we are responsible to lead, plan, operate, manage those various areas that I just listed. Some of them are quite large, and the managers will speak to them. We also provide some support directly to the library board. The library used to be within the Department of Community Services. A number of years ago, they split out to become more autonomous, as the Public Libraries Act calls for them to be. We place an emphasis on customer service, service delivery, asset management, responsible financial and human resource management, as well as communications and the various strategic initiatives that are set by City Council. Again, I talked about we are a very large department. We have over 250 employees, comprising of full-time, part-time, seasonal, and student staff. It makes up about 140 full-time equivalents. And an important part of that is many of our businesses are very seasonal. So we won't have 250 staff at any one time. Obviously, the summer months are heavy with seasonal due to our parks programming as well as our camp programming. Gross expenditures that you will see in this year's budget, it's approximately $17.2 million, of which $4.3 million is in revenues. And then we manage approximately 50 projects annually. This year's capital budget project total is about $20 million. On top of all of those things, we represent a number of internal and external committees as well. And that is both facing the public as well as I talked about internally, things such as Wilson Estate Committee, the various Chest Fund committees, Powerlinks, the Kawartha Lakes Parks Advisory Committee, Kawartha Lakes Cemetery Committee. So a number of committees which staff are represented on. A quick thing before I turn it over to some of the managers to talk about. You've heard the other departments talk. Some of them are sort of mostly capital, less on operating. Some are bigger on operating, some on capital. We are somewhat distinct in this. We manage, as you can see from the budget, both capital and operational programs. Very large on both sides of things. And again, we are, to some degree, all departments are, but to a big degree, really, many of our staff are the face of the public. If you're going into an arena, you're seeing a Parks and Recreation staff. If you're going into a service center, you're seeing a customer service staff. If you're going into a park, you're seeing typically a park staff. So we are very much a face to the public, but we also provide a service not just to the public, but internally as well. Building and Property provides most of their services to the internal client, which is staff, as well as you yourselves. So with that said, I'm now going to turn it over to Leanne Leanne Donnelly to come up and talk about administration and the Courier.
Hello. So administration and Courier, we oversee general administration of the department. We act as the liaison to council, SMT. We work heavily in budget preparation, as Director Shanks indicated. We do have a huge budget. We assist in strategic planning and other organizations throughout the city that we work closely with as community partnerships. Community Services Administration also provides administration and oversight to 5 committees of council. Along with this is the management of funding programs for the Legacy Chess programs, Wilson Estate, and the PowerLinks program. Administration is also responsible for the Courier program, which delivers library books inter-branch, so from branch to branch for those residents that order online and request pickup at certain branches. And we're also responsible for internal and external mail services throughout the city. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to James Smith, Manager of Building and Property.
Good morning. My name is James Smith. I'm the manager of building and property. My team oversees the majority of the city's administrative facilities where we serve internal clients, which is the other departments. We also look after public and municipal parking lots. My group is divided up into 2 sections. We have a project delivery team, which looks after the capital infrastructure projects. So we see it from inception all the way through to completion. And the other section is my operations team, which looks after day-to-day operations, which includes building maintenance requests, maintenance, utilities, repairs, and also we look after preventative maintenance duties. I'm going to call up Steve Babcock, Manager of Customer Service.
Good morning. I apologize, I forgot my Dumb and Dumber suit at home. I'll bring it next year, I promise. Steve Babcock, I manage the customer service department. We have a staff of almost 12 employees that are responsible for a multi-channel customer service unit. We provide frontline services at our 4 municipal service centers in Bobcaygeon, Cobeconk, Lindsay, and Omemee. As you've heard earlier today, the Cobeconk Service Center is undergoing renovation, so will be closed temporarily for about 6 months. And we provide general inquiry services to the majority of services that exist across the city. We also manage the corporate call center. We handle about 55,000 calls annually through the call center. We also manage our online reported system and our online sales program. And also just wanted to give a quick shout out to this customer service team. They work day in, day out to provide an exceptional customer service to our citizens and our residents. We've worked very hard as a unit over the last year and a half to create a one-team approach, break down communication silos that exist across the service centers, and really working at embracing technology and innovation in order to improve service delivery to the community. And I'm really, really proud of how this team has really come together in a supportive way. They're a team that has a lot of fun. If you don't believe me, just look at our customer service counter at City Hall today. And it's a team that really, really embraces one another and is there for each other when they need it. So I'm really proud of this customer service team and how they've come together over the last year and a half to really work as one team. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Manager Johnson.
Morning. I'm here to chat about about Parks and Recreation. We currently have 6 supervisors along with their teams, and as Craig mentioned, most of them are upstairs. They manage the services and programs associated within Parks and Recreation. So I have a little bit of a laundry list to kind of let you get a feel for the things that we deal with in Parks and Recreation. So those services include 3,000 hectares of forest, over 200 kilometers in trails, 180 properties, which include about 130 parks, 50 facilities of varying vintages, including 8 arenas, which house 9 ice pads, 2 aquatic and fitness facilities that have 3 pools and 2 workout centers, 47 cemetery properties, 45 boat launches, 2 community grant funding programs, 1 seasonal trailer park, tree management services, including tree replacement and planting in urban areas, horticulture and beautification services, and recreation programming that includes aquatic, fitness, leisure, and children's camps. Back to you.
Thank you, Jen, James, Leanne, and Steve. And again, I know that many of them thank their staff. It is my proudest moment as a director and previously as a manager is just when I get the chance to see what staff and community services accomplishes. You heard the laundry list of services and programs that we provide, no different from all the other departments. But again, it is just something that makes me very proud knowing that we are pretty much everything we do is being provided for the public. So again, congratulations to not just those that are here in attendance, but all of the staff within community services. Some of our accomplishments from 2023, again, you'll see them listed there. A few things just to highlight. So with the Trails Master Plan, what it is truly emphasizing is the future growth and the expansion of the system, as well as linkages, and then new parks in some of our development areas. The Lindsay Trail system, for example, one of the major accomplishments from this year is it's now pretty much linked in a circle all the way across, all the way around Lindsay. So residents, tourists, visitors to Lindsay can get from one area of the community of Lindsay to the other without necessarily needing to travel on a road. And in fact, I know that we have already received a number of compliments from some heavy trail users within Lindsay saying that they can go from the bottom southwest corner or southeast corner of town all the way up to Loblaws and not have to worry about going on a roadway if they're on their bike. We've implemented the new call quality program and improved customer service. I skipped past the Copaconk Wellness Center. That project is up and running, and a huge shout out to the community partners there. And the city's enabled with the local community for that project to move forward. The Bob Cajun Service Center and Library was, as you're all aware, recently completed and is now open and fully functioning. We've had a significant investment through building and property in the Kawartha Lakes Police Service facility. Some of those things include roof replacement, new evidence processing room, and then phase 1 has been completed and phase 2 to be completed for 2023, a boiler replacement as well as backup power installed for the HVAC system. Steve mentioned, Manager Babcock talked about divisional culture improvement to one team approach, customer first mentality. I don't need to get into details on that because Steve did a very good job of explaining how we are trying to achieve that to better serve both the customer as well as our internal client. And finally, one of the biggest accomplishments, knowing the strategic plans of the city and of council, is we have planted over 380 trees this past year on various streets, in trails, parks and cemeteries, and that is through partnerships with Fleming College as well as Home Hardware. Some of our priorities for 2024. You will notice throughout the budget book that we are looking at realigning department management, and the purpose of that is to support community growth as well as strategic priorities. We are certainly looking at, as you've heard, customer service and service center modernization, both here at the Lindsay Service Center at City Hall, as well as the Copaconk Service Center are going to be implemented very soon, and they will progress through Q4 of this year and Q1 of next year. One of the major things that Manager Babcock is looking at is the customer experience strategy, which I know he presented to council before, and we're looking very forward to finalizing that over the coming months and implementing it in 2024. For next year, we are looking at delivering our asset management and building condition assessment program. So we will be doing facility condition assets, which is led by our building and property division, on a number of facilities to help better serve our long-term financial planning from a facility asset standpoint. You've heard us talk, and I know that Chief Johnson has mentioned to you about the EMS facility headquarters project. So the design plans for that are finalizing. We're looking to put together an agreement with a partner in the near future so that implementation of construction can begin next year with a projected move-in date of 2025. The Parks and Recreation Division is looking at our strategic plan. It's outdated and we need to update it. I think it was last done in 2006, if I remember correctly. And on top of that, we're doing the Centennial Park redevelopment design plan. Again, that's our trailer park that Manager Johnson talked about. It's an older trailer park, and we need to do some redevelopment of it to again better serve the users of the park. We are looking at the ops property. You're well aware that the arena was closed down. We are looking at doing a design for a better use of the green space and park property of that. That's underway now. We are planning on taking that out for public input before we move forward. So that's something we're looking forward to next year. And then, as some other departments have mentioned as well, staff recruitment is a major priority for us. We are always facing staffing concerns and staffing issues at the various levels. Certainly during the pandemic, students were hit very hard from a standpoint of being able to attract them. That is getting better, but it still exists. And then just across the board, regardless of the level of positions, we often find vacancies for varying reasons, whether it's retirements, whether it's moving to different municipalities or different workforces, moving internally within the city as well. Some of the budget pressures that we're seeing. This is getting better for sure. And this is partly in how we are communicating with them, but we are working to improve our communications and dialogue in our working relations with some of the external agencies where we need to receive permits in order to complete projects, whether that's KRCA, Parks Canada. A number of our projects cannot move forward until we've got the needed permits. So when you see various projects being asked for extensions, that's some of the reason. It truly is outside of our control. We're waiting for permits from those other groups. You've heard from other departments about the significant inflation in supply materials and contracted services costs. We certainly are seeing a major part of that. We count on contracted services for a number of items within community services, from grass cutting to janitorial cleaning. The biggest one for this budget is our snow plowing contracts. Our snow plowing contracts are up roughly $250,000 to $300,000 in the department as a whole. So it's a major impact on the community services budget, which drives the increase in our requests that you see. Increased service level requirements as growth happens. Again, other departments and myself have talked about some of our priorities are trying to manage the growth, but with that growth comes a need for increased resources to be able to properly manage and operate and maintain those assets that we're taking on. Excuse me. And the last thing there is we as staff are continuing to review the budget for operating efficiencies and revisions. I know in the current budget that's in front of you, the target of 3%, we were slightly over that. I think we were at about 4.65%. About 200,000 over the 3%. I'm happy to advise that staff have worked hard, and when the final budget comes forward to you, you will see that revision or some increased revenues to make up for that roughly 200,000, and we have in fact achieved, pending the outcomes of the deliberations that Council has, the 3% target that each department has. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Director. Can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Joyce, Councillor Warren. Questions? Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. You talked about assets. Are there assets out there that are not being used that we might be able to sell? And I'm not sure if that's your department that does that, or how does that work?
Okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Council. So the city as a whole, corporately, and in fact, the city has done, in my opinion, a very good job of this, because it does, in fact, tie into a number of different departments across the organization. So we play a large part in that, both in property as well as facility. But both sides of things have talked about our counterparts in other departments, and we have identified various properties that can be considered surplus. It's then reviewed from a standpoint of what are some of the legalities regarding it. So Realty Services, for example, when it comes to properties, has looked at a number of properties that we've identified as just vacant lots that we don't have a need for in community services. It has gone to the Land Management Committee to determine, is there another city need for it? And if not, we ask Realty Services to say, can you review this, and is it a property that can be surplused, and then we can potentially sell? Oftentimes that is not, due to how it was originally deeded to the city originally. So it's a water access lot, and the residents in the area require water access, so therefore we can't rid ourselves of that property. We also look at facilities from a standpoint of what's the use of them. So over a number of years, the city has in fact closed down, done something different with facilities, and through our Realty Services Department, and what you've seen and you've heard through various budgets is reaching of the property sales budget that's been set. So short answer is yes, that's currently done, and we play a part in it, but it's more of a corporate initiative.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm really focused on the second bullet point there. A couple questions. I know COVID has really messed up our supply chain and pushed up prices. Do you see that settling down, or is that still a continuing problem, or is it episodic, depends on the type of supply?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, my answer, and some others might disagree, is my answer is yes, I think it's slowed down. But that doesn't alleviate the issue, because I don't think it's ever going back. It's no different from the housing market, right? The housing market had this huge explosion, and costs of homes went up quite massive. That has slowed down, but I don't think we're going to see the price of homes drop down to what they were selling for 5 years ago. That's not going to happen. I think the same thing with our cost for supplies and materials. I think the increase has slowed down, but I don't think it's going to drop down. And until we sort of raise our budgets to meet with what those increases have been, we're still going to be behind. And that's what you're seeing certainly in our budget this year. I think a number of other departments as well. We use the term right sizing, and that's both to what we've spent in previous years as well as to what the market is charging us.
Thank you. My next question is on the contracted services. It's kind of intimated, it's really ballooned up. Can you give me a rough percentage of ballooning?
Of our snow plowing? I believe it's in your budget book.
Yeah, I can look that up.
Okay, or I can send you an email, Councillor Joyce, directly if you like. But it is in the budget book under contracted materials, and it specifically mentions some of those contracts. But it is, if I remember correctly, it's in that 33% range, if I remember, and that's on snow plowing specific. Again, when it comes to contracting out, so yes, we have a large number of staff, but as Manager Johnson talked about, there's 180 properties across the city that we maintain, not just parks, but so the green space around this facility, for example, that exists all across the city of Kawartha Lakes. We can't possibly, nor is it efficient for us to maintain all of those with staff. So when you look at 180 properties, roughly it's a 65-35% split. We contract out 65% of those properties, we maintain 35 of them. We're not going to send a crew up to Dalton, for example, to cut the grass when it's the only property up there, and they're going to be on the road for a significant portion of time. So where there is a congregation of properties, that's typically where you'll see staff maintaining them, and those where there's a typical drive time, we will contract out, and typically it's a local contractor that is successful in that bid, and therefore we're not paying for the significant transportation that it would take for our staff to do it.
You answered my next question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Director Shanks, thank you for the presentation, and wanted to thank staffs, especially the call center staff. They are literally on the front line, because the people that work there, they interact with more people in one day than I think us councillors do probably in a month. Like, it's just, it takes a special mindset and skill to be in a call center and deal with people. And I commend them for that, and wanted to thank James over there and Steve for always getting back to me. Appreciate that. I know, Steve, we talked about things like JDE and CASE, and that's a topic for another day, but I appreciate your time when you do talk to me about that. It was mentioned here about library and services. Do you think that at one time we're going to be able to have some other services in the libraries, whether they be large or small? Like, we have many libraries and they all are important. And would we be able to expand some services, or are you looking at that in the future, in the near future, for our libraries?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So that currently takes place now in some libraries. Obviously, where it's a joint location, so Cobeconk and Bob Cajun, for example, it's a much higher level of service that those libraries can provide, and they provide them at times when the library is open and not the service center is. Some of the other library locations do provide some enhanced services, such as Fenland Falls has always provided a little bit higher level of service. But again, the short answer to your question is yes, we are looking at it. Jamie Anderson, the library CAO, is working with the city on how that can take place. A big part of it, though, does relate to the various contracts that are out there. In between the contract that consists of both customer service representatives as well as our library staff, but it also looks at things such as technology and what we can provide from those libraries based on access to the various systems that the city might have to manage some of those things. So quick answer is yes, but it's not always simple.
Thank you. And finally, the Trans-Canada Trail. That's one of the trails, but we also manage our own trails, and there's so many trails, and they're great systems for people to get around. I know it's kind of a convoluted thing because you have to, some of these trails, and obviously the Trans-Canada Trail we don't manage, and do you find that you're having cooperation with those who look after those trails, like we can communicate back and forth okay? Because there's always something that comes up.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So those of you that don't know, the Trans-Canada Trail, the Kawartha Trans-Canada Trail, runs east-west through the city, and the city does not own that trail at all. We own a very, very small portion of it as it runs through Lindsay, but the balance of it, no, we don't own. It's managed through a number of groups that have an agreement with the Trans-Canada Trail Association. To your question, Councillor Ashmore, Manager Johnson actually sits on the Kawartha Trans-Canada Trail executive. So yes, we have a voice there. It's strong communication, strong partnership, but we don't get directly involved in the management of it. We manage the 200-kilometer trail network, which predominantly 85 kilometers of it is the Victoria Rail Trail, which runs from Bethany down up to Kinmount. And then there's a number of other trails that exist within our various forest networks, whether it's Somerville, Emily, or Pontypool. There's a Dunsford Nature Trail, just 2 kilometers, sort of dead, which you're well aware of. So that's the balance of our 200 kilometers. But the biggest portion of it is the VRTC. And yes, we do communicate with the Trans-Canada Trail Association through Manager Johnson's role on their executive.
Thank you.
I get a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor, do I have it? Yeah. Well, sorry, I already got one. All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to Human Services and see where we go from there. Okay, I think we're almost ready. I see you brought Gandalf the Grey with you. That's very nice. It's good to have a wizard in our presence. So.
Yeah, she actually said she was going to stand up and say,
"This budget shall pass."
Maybe that's a little foresight on Halloween. We'll see.
If only it was that easy.
Okay.
Anytime you're...
Thank you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start my budget off with saying Happy Halloween and to all a good fright as we end the budget presentations this morning. So moving forward, a little bit of an overview of the Human Services Department. As you can see from the span across the various divisions, as shown on the screen, we serve a variety of services, including housing, underneath that, community housing, affordable housing and development, and then of course homelessness prevention. And we also have the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation within the department, as well as in social services, the delivery of Ontario Works and our children's services programs. And we also have Victoria Manor, our long-term care home within our department. And with that, today I would like to introduce some of our team that is here today. With us today, aka Gandalf, we have Janine Mitchell, Manager for Social Services, including the Ontario Works portfolio and Children's Services. And then we have Holly Russett, our Executive Assistant, the glue that keeps us together. And I think to Councillor Smeaton's comment earlier, definitely the glue that keeps us together. We have Kirsten Maxwell, who's our Chief Executive Officer for the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation. Michelle Corley, the Manager of Social Services or Human Services with Housing. And then we have Pam Koulis, our Executive Director with Victoria Manor. And in the background, the cheap seats, as always, we have the Chiefs hockey team. I like it. We have Don Quibel, our Manager of Building and Facilities. We have Kendra Fleetwood, who is our program supervisor. Maybe just give a wave for the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation. We have Shelley Smith, who is our manager for tenant services with the Housing Corporation. We have Jamie Clydesdale, our program supervisor with social services on Ontario Works. And beside him, his cohort, Sarah Avery, also program supervisor with Ontario Works. And last but not least is Ann Kuiper for the program supervisor with Children's Services. We have a few folks, I'm not sure if anyone's upstairs missing, and probably watching online, some of our program supervisors, as well as our Victoria Manor management team as well. A great crew that keeps that place ticking. So with Human Services, we are located across 3 areas. As you know, 68 Lindsay Street is our main location. We also have an office in Halliburton at 49 Maple Street. And then we also have the Victoria Manor at 122 Angeline Street. 220. You'd be at the wrong spot if you followed my directions. And then we have 14 housing buildings across the area as well with the KLH Housing Corporation. So let me take you through just a little bit of an overview. As you are aware, we are the Consolidated Municipal Service Manager for the City of Kawartha Lakes and the County of Halliburton. And that has been, we were the designated lead by the province municipality to cover both of those areas, and this is actually through a partnership agreement that we have struck with the County of Halliburton since 1999. We also have a joint advisory committee of 3 councillors from Halliburton and Kawartha Lakes that we report into. And with that, there are 47 municipal service managers serving the 444 municipalities across Ontario. And as the CMSM, we are accountable to plan, fund, and deliver integrated services to the most vulnerable population as a contracted agent under the province. The City of Kawartha Lakes is also the sole shareholder for the KLH Housing Corporation as the largest housing service provider in the area with 783 units. And then flipping over to the long-term care facility under the Fixing Long-Term Care Home Act of 2021, again, we are mandated to manage a long-term care facility. So all upper tier and single tier municipalities must manage. And then with Victoria Manor, we have a committee of management of which 3 councillors sit on, and the work reports in through to that committee. And currently, right now, we are contracted with Sienna Senior Living Services to manage the home, of which the city is the owner of the home. And then we have 2 transfer payment agencies related to building and maintaining health system capacity and access, and they are listed on your screen there. So looking back over the last 3 quarters, much has transpired over the last 10 months, given the strategic objectives of each ministry and the demands and utilization of our services. So as the slide indicates, within and across the department, we've diligently been working to ensure that the right level of care and service is in the right place at the right time for the clients and residents served by the right care and leadership team to maximize the investments for effective and accountable service delivery. Within social services, children's services and social assistance, Ontario Works, system transformation continues to be underway at a large scale and a fast pace, impacting many facets of client-centered service operations, funding and staffing models, performance metrics, and the enabling technologies and modernization initiatives to support innovation and change in both of these areas. The Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Plan continues to be executed as a federal, provincial, and municipal endeavor to work towards accessible, affordable, and inclusive childcare. Continuous improvement and evaluation of implementation continue given the employment and stability support service transformation across Ontario. Within housing services, you've recently heard of the major accomplishments related to the prevention and reduction of homelessness within and across the city of Kawartha Lakes, as well as the integration of social and health system services, both with the mobile outreach and hub expansion, the mobile outreach hub and expansion of this, and the establishment through the homelessness prevention program investment to an integrated care hub. To better support those needing housing, we've collapsed our rent supplement programs to make access and administration more seamless. It's exciting to know that the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation's new build on Hamilton Street is inching closer, and anticipation that 46 units will come available in Q1 or early Q2 of 2024 will be a success. And that will allow us to have some 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units at that facility. Victoria Manor staff continue to provide quality care to our 166 residents, of which not only residents and their family members continue to rate their satisfaction high pertaining to the care received and the services provided. This also shone through in the high achievement received with a 3-year accreditation status achieved earlier this year through the Commission of Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. As well, the resident experience as a main priority of care, staff implemented the new Settle-In program for residents and families. We also underwent an extensive capital planning process for Victoria Manor, looking at the facility condition assessment and the life cycle of the current facility, which was built in 1989. It's coming up on a facility that is 34 years old. There will be a report coming to council later November on this plan. So looking at our priorities for 2024, looking forward, in order to keep up with the pace of change at the provincial level, as well as the changing landscape locally, you'll notice 2024 will be a year of planning ahead with the development of a 5-year children's services plan and the corresponding expansion plan for new spaces, a new social assistance service plan for Ontario Works, bringing together the modernization and implementation and the outcomes of the Stability Support Services evaluation. We will have a revised and refreshed housing and homelessness plan that aligns with the current state of affordable housing development and future capital builds required to meet and or achieve the required number of affordable units given the city's new housing target to be achieved by 2031. And the execution of Victoria Manor's capital plan within the city's long-term financial plan and 10-year capital planning process to establish a plan for the future. At the same time, strategic planning is a focus, so are the current day-to-day operation and achievement of program delivery and excellence. Staff continue to adapt and meet the changes in program delivery, new funding models, new performance metrics, the provincial average target set by the Ministry of Long-Term Care for the desired number of hours of care per resident that they receive per day. Staff continue to ensure accountable and effective delivery of mandated services by providers through transfer payments and being adaptable and responsive to the increasing demands and needs of tenants living within our housing buildings, as well as the wellness and safety of our staff. As we look at the pressures for 2024, here are a few facts to paint the landscape for you. By the end of September, 9 months into 2023, there is an average of 1,337 cases accessing Ontario Works, and the average number of beneficiaries, those receiving support through Ontario Works, is approximately 2,139 individuals. Again, the rates for Ontario Works have not changed in 6 years, nor been adjusted due to the increase with the cost of inflation. Of the caseload, 65% of our caseload are singles who only receive $733 a month. A couple receives $1,136 a month, and couples with one dependent receive $1,191 per month. The average rent of a single room right now is $721 a month. Average rent for a one-bedroom apartment right now is $1,451 per month. And remember, a single living on Ontario Works only receives $390 a month to put towards that. A couple, $642, and a couple with one dependent receives $697 for monthly rent. Vacancy rates for these types of dwellings over the last few years have been below 1%. Occupancy rates at the 19 shelter bed facility of a place called home is usually at 100%. In Kawartha Lakes, the dwelling types are approximately 87% single detached or semi-detached, and only approximately 11.6% are dwellings classified as apartments. There are 2,276 households on the waiting list for housing as of today. There have been 512 households added to the community housing wait list during the first 9 months of this year. That's approximately 57 per month, and only 54 have been housed over the course of that time. There are 116 unique individuals living rough and unsheltered and registered on the by name list in Kawartha Lakes, and 29 in Haliburton. As of August 2023, our numbers show approximately 160 are unhoused across the region, and approximately 40 to 50 are living unsheltered, homeless. Knowing there is a rising demand for affordable housing, the impact and spin-off of demand and growth also impact the need for access to childcare and early learning programs. In the city, because of limited space, we're only able to achieve a 15% access rate for families, with an anticipated goal to expand to 32% by 2026. However, that was planning done prior to the city's target of 6,500 new homes built by 2031. Currently, the wait for access to a licensed childcare is 5.4 years. Children needing care will actually age out before they are offered a space, and the numbers continue to rise given the reduction in rates for childcare. One key pressure point in this system is the parity of wages for the staff in this field, as well as the demand for educators to meet the required staffing ratios per child group. So looking at the last slide for the budget pressures, I continue with a great story. Interest rate increase caused affordable housing projects to be delayed due to rising carrying costs with no ability to increase rents due to stagnant incomes of low-income households. And our construction costs have almost doubled in the last 5 years, making the pro forma model to build the required capital upfront needed and trying to sustain operations very unachievable for housing service providers to build new affordable housing units. Majority of the housing stock in the City of Kawartha Lakes is between the ages of 50 to 30 years old, with approximately 15 years of no new builds between then and when the remainder was built in the last 10 years. Aging infrastructure is a huge concern. We have little control over increasing costs. For example, utilities and fleet saw a 6.7% increase, and providing security services in our buildings has become part of day-to-day operations, costing over $119,000 annually, only to see this rise. Snow plowing, specialized contract work to maintain old operating systems at the long-term care home are also increasing pressures. Without capital to build or retrofit affordable housing from an upstream approach, the pressure will continue to hit downstream with capacity and resources needed for emergency shelter beds, increases to rental supplements for individuals, and costs associated with meeting the needs of those living unsheltered or camping within our community. In 2021, the last census showed that the population of 65 years and older is growing at 28.2% of our population, compared to 2016 with an increase of from 25.3%. Knowing the demand for long-term care continues to rise, at the end of August, there were 401 people on the waiting list for Victoria Manor with an almost 100% occupancy rate. Given that the facility is almost 34 years old, review of the capital plan and deciding on options for long-term redevelopment will be ahead for us. So we'll take a breath, because that ends our story. However, the budget pressures, as you can see, are based on a lot of what's happening in society right now, and it will be a very interesting year for us within the Human Services Department. So again, my theme this year is resilience and moving forward.
Thank you. I think it's not a good news story, unfortunately, but I know your team and you're all working very hard to try and help out all those folks who need the help. And I don't think that those services were ever intended to be on the property taxpayer, but we have it and we have to deal with it. But you got a great team, and I know they're doing everything they can. Anyway, can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Yeo and Councillor McDonald. Questions? Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to you. So you just recently went to Ottawa with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. So is there any hope in the offing? Because you're right, it's a very, very challenging, sad time.
I was in Ottawa and we had some very good meetings. We met with the municipalities of Canada and their lobby group. And they were talking about the federal fall economic statement. And in their talks with every party across the spectrum, the single biggest issue that they talk about is housing. They expect that in the fall economic statement, which is due in the next 2 weeks, I think, and I believe the provincial one is due Thursday, they expect to see something about housing in that economic statement, and that usually precludes what would appear in the budget. So we also had a meeting with some 15 plus MPs and 2 senators, and one of the MPs was a cabinet minister, and they all said the right kinds of things. So I think the meetings were very good. They got our message from Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, and they were very supportive of the things we were talking about in terms of housing and in terms of poverty reduction and all those things. And all I can say is we'll have to wait and see. But based on what they said, I'm hopeful that we're going to see some movement. Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, no questions. I just want to really, if you can scroll back to your page 45 on your slide deck. I really want to shout out something. I've been on the Social Services Committee for a year now, and some really positive changes I just want to highlight. Strengthen a client-centered approach. That's huge. Much like there's a paradigm shift in primary care several years ago to make the patient the center. This is the same thing where the client is the centered client-centered approach. Paradigm shift there that's going to be very positive. Second bullet point, the service delivery philosophy aligned with strategic priorities and steward team accountability. I've seen all these changes, and it's going to be a very positive changes within social services, despite these massive challenges that they have to do with housing, and also the mobile outreach hub. That's another new thing, very positive paradigm shift in how we tackle these problems. I just wanted to highlight those changes as I think very ahead of the curve and very forward thinking. Thank you.
Did you wish to comment, Director?
Yeah, through to you, to the councillor. I appreciate that, and I know the staff and the team here appreciate hearing that. Given the breadth and scope of the work on the plate, we sometimes have to stop and say, what is our role? What is our scope? And how do we lead and steward that forward? So we have taken the time this year to do a lot of that thinking to prepare us for moving forward. Are we there? Are we there yet? No, because we also have to be adaptable and nimble to keep up with the changes. Yet if we can feel like we're all on the same page, driving to the same vision, it really helps us at the end of the day that we're actually working as an integrated team in the department.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Thank you through you to Cheryl. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks to Human Services staff for coming here today. One of the things that I was going to ask was the rent bank. We had a rent bank whereby the city would help people who were desperately trying to make ends meet. They were trying to avoid having to go on to social assistance, trying to get a roof over their head, get their first and last month's rent. I think that program was kind of, lack of better words, mothballed, or whether it was transferred to something else. Do we still have those funds, or can we utilize that program again, because it was a great program and it helped a lot of people?
I'll ask Manager Corley to respond to that.
Through the mayor to the councillor, so good question. The rent bank program ended, if I recall correctly, around 2018, and it was replaced with an outright grant. And it's one of many opportunities for financial assistance that low-income households can access. So whether they're facing challenges with paying utilities, trying to get first month's rent to secure a rental unit, as well as rental arrears. So they can contact Human Services for that program now, access those funds without a requirement to repay it, which was significantly different from the rent bank program. I think looking back, we had good intentions and we're following provincial guidelines for a rent bank program. But when we're asking low-income households who are already struggling to pay rent, asking them to repay a loan, it was really challenging to administer.
Thanks. Just a question to that, further question. Do you know how much is in that, and do you have enough funds in that program that's to help people, or do you need us to help? Do you need more help with that, more support?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor. So good question. And I can say confidently that since we did that transition back in 2018, we have never exceeded our funds. And it's a combination, largely provincial funding, and we're able to make use of funds through social services as well as housing services and provincial funds that can come through both of those program streams.
Okay, thank you. And my last question was childcare. Have we partnered with, I know we do partner to a certain degree with the school boards. Are we maybe partnering with other agencies to try and get more spaces freed up, or any partnerships like that that can help with the inventory of childcare spaces?
Definitely, and through you, Mayor, to the councillor, I'll have Manager Mitchell speak to that, but there has been concerted effort underway given the expansion and inclusion plan, so.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, we've definitely reached out to all of our
our own children's services partners. We've also reached out to the business community to see if they had suitable space. The issue is the space needed to expand spaces is very specific, and it's a significant amount of space. For 49 spaces for children, you need between 8 to 10,000 square feet in order to accommodate that care. But we're working with all of our partners, the school boards. We are open to ideas. We're working with other partners like the hospitals as well, just to reach out to see what we can make work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Janine just answered my question. I was just we talked before about the retrofitting and working with smaller communities and being able to move through that process, and there is a lot of handcuffing that's going on, and it's really frustrating, and a lot of folks aren't aware of those challenges, and I certainly hear it all the time. And, you know, just on that note, I do want to thank your entire department, because I can't tell you how many times I've had to reach out in different departments just trying to answer certain questions, and there's so many different questions out there for folks and so many needs right now, and we do recognize how hard you guys are working, and thank you for that.
Thank you. I have a question. A couple of years ago, maybe even last year, the new IT system that the province brought in was causing grave difficulties, and we were having to re-input things once, twice, 3 times, and sometimes the data disappeared. Have those troubles been solved, or are we still struggling with that?
Through you, which one? We've had many IT platforms that serve across our divisions. However, I'm wondering if you're thinking of the childcare, the system that supports the childcare system.
I don't know that it was childcare. I thought maybe it was Ontario Works or ODSP.
If I could speak in general, that continues on a daily basis across the divisions for sure. And we strive to work with the province on probably a day-to-day basis, bring things back and forth, and provincially across the 47 CMSMs and district social services boards. The one thing that we are noting, though, from again, speaking to this slide, as we look to an integrated service delivery, we do not have systems that speak to one another. So it actually silos a lot of our systems, given the unique, different IT platforms that we have to work in. And so certainly working with corporate services to look at probably a CRM, a customer relationship management program, to actually be able to allow us to bring our systems together to better serve and support the individual.
Yeah, I think what was happening when they first brought that in, they actually gave us some extra money because of the increased costs of us having to do things on a repetitive nature. And I'm wondering if they're still underwriting any portion of that.
Well, actually, if I could through you, the other thing that comes to mind as you say that too is that the province was taking back some of the administration for Ontario Works and centralizing a lot of administration and saying that that was going to save the municipality the cost of doing that business. And that's not working out real well right now. So we continue to traverse through that process. And I see Councillor or Manager Mitchell has something to add here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add that with the systems that we do have that have been there for a number of years, our staff have actually become the experts for those systems over and above the provincial team, that we often resolve issues and submit our resolution to the province to say this is how you can make this work, because our staff have been, with the province, they have all new staff there. They don't have people who really know the system as well as we do. So we make it work really well, and that's thanks to the staff that we have.
That doesn't surprise me. And thank you for doing that. But you know, any way we can highlight this, that, you know, this is a big issue, because I'm sure it takes up a lot of staff time doing this, which could be better spent doing other things. So, thank you. So we have a mover and seconder. Can I have a motion, all in favor? And that passes. Thank you all in Human Services for everything you do and trying to take care of all those vulnerable folks out there. I know you're probably not appreciated as much as you should be, but I think this council and the folks that sit on the Housing Corporation and the JEC and Victoria Manor know the things you do. So thank you. Can I have a confirming bylaw? Councillor Warren, Councillor Perry, all in favor? And that's passed. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Yeo and Councillor Ashmore, all in favor? Bless you. Thank you all for coming today.